discovered how baby puppy Ginger's 5 messy mistakes led to incredible 2-year transformation. Rain poured down like the world was crying with Emily as she trudged home, her 28-year-old heart heavy from the day's grind at the diner. She pulled her damp jacket tighter around her, exhaling clouds of chilly breath into the cool air. In her own little world, Belly, a spirited 8-year-old, with wild curls and dreams bigger than Chicago, chatted endlessly about school. But today, Emily felt the exhaustion clawing at her. As they rounded the corner to their quaint suburban home, Bella's eyes lit up like stars in the night sky, falling on a scruffy little puppy huddled under a porch across the street. "Mama, look!" she exclaimed, bounding toward the trembling ball of fur. The scruffy pup, with patchy brown fur and curious eyes, looked as desperate as they felt. Emily's heart melted. "Hey there, little one. You're in the wrong spot, aren't you?" Before she knew it, they had named her Ginger, and that spontaneous rescue breathed life into their weary routine. The air felt lighter. Hope filled their tiny home like the scent of freshly baked cookies. But joy was often short-lived in their corner of the world. Ginger's antics soon spiraled into chaos. Flowers flattened in Mr. Thompson's prized garden, tomato sauce tidal, waves during dinner prep, and countless shoes devoured like they were gourmet treats. Each mishap filled the air with frustration, sending Emily into a defensive mode against neighbors who wielded judgment instead of understanding. My heart sank when Mrs. Jenkins shook her head, muttering, "That poor dog." But behind those eyes, Emily saw whispers of their struggles echoing back. She understood. Each messy incident ripped at the fabric of their community, but it also wove new connections. Unexpectedly, neighbors came forward when Ginger's antics turned into community challenges. Pet-themed events began to emerge, people showing up to lend a helping hand, put on fundraisers for the local animal shelter. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Emily faced a pivotal moment at one of those gatherings, tension thick like the storm clouds that gathered earlier. A misunderstanding flared, voices clashing like thunder as neighbors confronted her with their fears and biases laid bare. Heart pounding, she watched Bella's small frame tremble beside her, fragile hope hanging in the balance. Could this confrontation be a nail in their community coffin, or a bridge to something better? Standing at that crossroads, Emily felt the weight of wanting acceptance battling against her fierce love for Bella and their adorable Ginger. Would she leap into the unsteady waters of vulnerability, risking everything for a chance at belonging? Or would she retreat into the shadows, letting judgment pull them further apart? In that charged moment, she realized that every messy mistake Ginger made had brought them here, leading to surprising allies among those they once assumed would only judge. The stakes couldn't be higher, and as the murmurs rose, Emily knew she had to choose. Would she fight for their spot in the world or curl inward once more? The words hung in the air like the last notes of a song, promising either resolution or discord. Emily took a breath, feeling the encroaching judgment of the neighbors like weighty clouds threatening to burst overhead. She looked down at Bella, her little girl's eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. What would Emily do? Would her actions shield Bella from community scorn or expose them both to more hurt? Can we talk about this? Emily's voice surprised, even her steady despite the storm brewing around her. Murmurs tapered off, and she sensed the world hold its breath, waiting for her next words. Ginger is just a puppy. She makes mistakes like we all do. But what she taught us, what she brought into our lives, it's precious. A heartwarming silence settled over the gathering. Neighbors shifted uneasily, exchanging glances as Emily's words began to sink in. In those moments, she had an image flash to her mind, a collage of Ginger's chaotic mischief. The mess, the laughter, and the unexpected friendships blooming amid the chaos. Although she may not be perfect, Emily continued, her voice rising slightly. Fueled by the courage blossoming within her, she reminds us of the beauty in connection. We've all felt like outsiders at times, haven't we? Her statement hung there, formant invitation. She could see some heads nodding, reluctant acknowledgement blossoming on faces previously set in judgment. Emily took a step towards the crowd, channeling all her love for Bella and Ginger into each word. Every mishap has brought us closer. It's a chance to support one another. I know we all have our struggles, and I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking for understanding. Mrs. Jenkins, whose harsh words had stung, now wore a look of uncertainty. But what about the damage? She called out, her tone softening just a hint. What if she hurt someone? And what if? Emily countered gently, meeting her gaze directly. This community becomes a place where we help one another instead of pointing fingers. Ginger can teach us forgiveness. She's not just a mess, she's a reminder of hope. A murmur rippled through the crowd, the tension beginning to dissolve. They were listening now. Emily glanced at Bella, who had started to smile, a flicker of pride lighting up her little face. With hands trembling slightly, Emily reached down and scooped up Ginger, who had been patiently sitting at her feet, sensing the charged energy. The puppy squirmed, her little tail wagging furiously, as if she understood the significance of this moment. Look at her, full of joy despite her mistakes. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we all could be that brave? To leap into the chaos, embracing connection over conflict. Hope flickered in the faces around her, the storm clouds shifting from gray to hints of soft blue. I've seen people come together, Emily continued, brimming with a newfound conviction. Let's create a community that celebrates those imperfections and encourages love, not just for pets, but for each other. That bold statement hung there like a gentle challenge. She could feel their hearts inching closer, a reality settling in. Perhaps they were more united than they had imagined. But as the conversations began to spark, a sudden bark cut through the air. A little boy ran up, gingerly holding a shoelace-covered snow boot, a surprisingly large grin plastered across his face. "Look what Ginger brought me," he exclaimed. Laughter erupted, breaking the remaining tension, and Emily felt her heart swell. Could this be the turning point they needed? As she gazed at her neighbors, she realized there was something larger at play, a potential for real connection that could change everything for Bella and her family. The possibilities loomed like an open sky ahead. But just then, as they all turned towards Ginger, a series of frantic yips erupted from the other end of the street. Emily's brow furrowed. What now? Little did she know, This was just the beginning of an unexpected adventure that lay ahead. Would it lead to strengthening their community even further, or would it test the bonds they had worked so hard to build? The laughter faded into the distance, replaced by a new commotion that sent a wave of curiosity rippling through the crowd. Emily glanced down the street, her heart pounding as she tried to assess the situation. Little did she know that this moment could reshape everything. A chorus of yips grew louder. Faces turned in unison, eyes wide with a mixture of concern and intrigue. A small group of children darted past, their animated voices rising over the sound of Ginger's jubilant barks. Emily felt Bella squeeze her hand tighter, a pulse of fear palpable in the air. "What's happening?" Bella asked, her gaze shifting from Emily to the unfolding scene. "Let's go see," Emily replied, her heart racing with both anticipation and concern. As they moved toward the commotion, Emily's mind flickered with possibilities. Was it another mishap? Or was this a golden opportunity for connection? They arrived at the scene, and Emily's breath caught in her throat. Ginger was playfully chasing after a small ball, her fur shining in the late afternoon sun. But it wasn't just Ginger causing the ruckus. A group of children were laughing and cheering her on, their delight infectious. The neighborhood kids had suddenly transformed from judgmental onlookers to excited participants in the unfolding drama. "What's going on, guys?" Emily called out, catching the attention of a few nearby children. "Ginger found my ball." A girl named Lucy shouted, her dark curls bouncing as she bounced on the balls of her feet. "She's so fast." Emily felt her heart ease, a smile spreading across her face. This was the kind of chaos she could get behind. She watched as the children took turns tossing the ball. Ginger leaping joyously after it, her little paws barely making contact with the ground as she raced back and forth. As she observed, whispers of the previous argument began to fade, replaced by the sound of laughter and cheers. Emily looked back at the adults in the crowd. Surprised to see some of them chuckling and nodding in approval, Mrs. Jenkins, once stern and judgmental, now had a soft smile. "Clapping along with the other parents, this is what it's all about, isn't it?" Emily said softly to Bella, bending down to meet her eye level. "Connection, even when things aren't perfect." Bella beamed up at her, completely enchanted by Ginger's antics. "Can we keep playing with them, Mama?" "Yes, sweet girl." "Let's go join them." They stepped into the mix as Emily clapped and cheered along with the children. Before long, she found herself laughing and tossing the ball, her heart lifting with each joyful bark and shriek of delight. But just as the crowd seemed to embrace this unexpected turn of events, a nervous hush washed over them. A newcomer had arrived, a stern-looking man with crossed arms, surveying the scene with a frown. Emily felt her stomach drop. Just when they had begun to unearth hope, here was a new source of worry. "What's this mess?" He called out, his voice came through the laughter like a chill wind. Emily's chest tightened as she turned to face him, ready to stand her ground. Was this another moment of confrontation, or an opportunity to make things right? Her heart raced, knowing that the strength of their newfound connection was hanging in the balance. Who will speak up now? She thought, glancing at the neighbors gathered around her. Would they rally for the joy they had just discovered, or retreat back into the shadows of judgment? The air felt electric as everyone watched, the tension thick enough to slice. What would happen next? Would they seize the moment to defend what they'd built, or would fear pull them back into line? The man's disapproving frown deepened as the laughter around him faded into cautious whispers. Emily felt the heat rising in her face. Suddenly, the joyful cheers of children seemed fragile, like glass teetering on the edge of a table. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Ginger just found Lucy's bowl. We're having fun, and fun." He interrupted, stepping further into the circle. "This isn't a dog park, it's a neighborhood. You've got the whole street looking like a circus." Emily could see the tension wrapping around the group like a thick blanket. A few parents exchanged uneasy glances. Some children tugged on their parents' sleeves, sensing the abrupt change in atmosphere. Ginger, unaware of the heavy unfolding drama, sniffed the grass and returned to the group, wagging her tail and dropping the now slobbered ball at Lucy's feet. The girl squealed with delight, but even her joy felt dimmed in the man's shadow. "Hey there," another neighbor spoke up, breaking the silence. It was Mr. Thompson, a kind man, known to keep his distance. "We don't get a lot of joy around here, do we? I think it's nice to have a little light." The stern man rolled his eyes, but the flicker of uncertainty was visible. Emily felt a spark of hope ignite. Mr. Thompson continued, "You know, it's not often we see the kids playing together like this. It reminds us of community." "There's also a leash law," the man retorted sharply. But the murmur of agreement echoed among the other parents who were slowly warming to the excitement of the moment. Emily could almost hear their hearts beating louder as they rallied together, finding strength in unity. Ginger bounded toward the man as if sensing the tension, her tongue lolling out cutely. The man hesitated, watching the dog approach. To everyone's surprise, he knelt slightly, reaching a hand out, cautiously inviting Ginger closer. Emily held her breath as Ginger sniffed and then gently licked his hand. A soft gasp rippled through the crowd. There was something heartwarming, something that felt remarkably human about watching a man melt just a little in the face of pure joy. Maybe, just maybe, this could open the floodgates to warmth instead of conflict. Des moments à fragile truce. Slowly, a smile broke across his face, a reluctant acceptance. "You've got a lively little thing there," he said softly, looking up at Emily as Ginger finally flopped down at his feet, seemingly inviting him to join the fun. Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her. "We have a lot of love to give," she said gently. "And I think we could use a little more laughter around here." An unexpected ripple of agreement swept through the crowd. Children began to cheer again, the colorful energy returning as they started tossing the ball for Ginger once more. Emily dared to look at Bella, who was practically glowing with joy. But the man's shift in mood didn't halt Emily's pulse. A hard look still lingered in his eyes, a storm barely contained behind his changing demeanor. What did this mean for the neighborhood, for the relationships she was trying so hard to build? "Maybe we could find a way to make it work," he said, still uncertain but clearly wrestling with something deeper. The crowd held its collective breath, waiting to see if he would take a step forward into their little community or retreat back to his earlier standoffish ways. Just then, a loud crash echoed down the street. Everyone turned as something unexpected caught their attention, an old car careening around the corner, tires screeching. What could possibly come next? The car skidded dangerously close, tires clashing against the pavement in a high-pitched screech. Emily's heart raced, instinct forcing her to move closer to Lucy and the other children. The man straightened, his earlier softness gone, replaced by a predatory focus. "Everyone back!" he shouted, hands held up as if to shield them. Parents instinctively pulled their kids behind them, eyes widening in a mix of alarm and confusion. The car swerved, barely missing a parked vehicle, as if the driver had lost control completely. Emily's breath hitched, visions of disaster flashing before her eyes. She glanced at Ginger, who had instinctively darted away from the chaos, seeking safety behind Emily's legs. The world felt frozen for a heartbeat, caught in the web of fear. But the unexpected happened. As the car pulled to a stop, the door flung open and out tumbled a woman, breathless and wide-eyed. She stumbled, scanning the scene. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I'd missed the turn." The man, who had been reprimanding them moments before, wore a look of shock mixed with concern. He stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Are you okay? You need to calm down." "I'm fine. I didn't mean to." Her voice cracked, her distress palpable. "I was distracted by this dog parkour, whatever this is." Laughter bubbled up from the parents, tension dissipating like morning fog. Emily caught Mr. Thompson's eye, relief flooding through the crowd. This was no circus. It was community under a harried circumstance. As the driver took a moment to compose herself, her gaze settled on Ginger, who ventured forward, tail wagging as if to reassure. "Is that your dog?" the woman asked, kneeling to offer a hand. "She looks friendly enough." Emily swallowed, unsure of how to respond. A twinge of dread gnawed at her gut, fear of judgment still lingering. Would this woman dismiss the laughter, the joy? But to her surprise, the frown that once burdened the man's face relaxed. "She's a good dog," he said, his tone softer now. "And this was the most fun I've seen here in ages." The woman smiled genuinely, her panic fading as she petted Ginger, who absorbed the affection like sunlight. "I guess I stumbled into the right place after all," she said, her eyes sparkling with mirth. Emily felt warmth bloom inside her. "We like to think so," she said, her voice gaining strength. "We're trying to bring a little happiness to the neighborhood." "I think it's working," the woman replied, laughter echoing in the air like music. The children slowly edged forward, encouraged by the newfound energy swirling among the adults. They resumed tossing the ball, laughter ringing out once more, this time lighter, freer. But just as the crowd started to ease back into the enjoyable rhythm of the day, Emily noticed the man's eyes. Though the corners of his mouth were upturned, there was something deeper, a hidden conflict. She could sense it. His wall was not completely down. As the noise of laughter grew, Emily made her way to him, determined to understand. "Thank you for stepping in earlier," she said softly. "I didn't mean to create a scene." Before Emily could finish, the man's expression turned serious. "It's just, these things can spiral." His voice trailed off, eyes looking past her, as if wrestling with an unspoken fear. "What do you mean?" She pressed gently, wanting to peel back the layers of this unexpected bridge they were building. Suddenly, the joyful racket began to shift once more. Emily turned. Another commotion stirred from behind them, the sounds of yelling penetrating the bubble of camaraderie. "Mom, look out!" Lucy's voice pierced the air, panic lacing her words. Emily's heart sank. What now? Emily whipped around, her pulse quickening at the urgency in Lucy's voice. There was a collective gasp from the crowd, a tremor of dread rippling through the gathered families. From the corner of her eye, she caught movement. A group of older kids was sprinting toward the edge of the park, a ball spiraling through the air, but someone was in the way. A toddler stumbled from the shelter of a tree, giggling, utterly unaware of the impending chaos. Lucy, stay back. Emily called, her voice strained. She rushed forward, the world around her blurring into a single focus, the little girl. The man, once so poised and guarded, dashed ahead of Emily. He moved quickly, his long legs eating up the distance. No, don't! He yelled as the group of children drew closer and closer to the child. Pick her up! Emily shouted at the man, since she couldn't reach them in time. Time seemed to stretch as she watched in horror. The speed of the game obscured all caution, and the ball soared toward the little girl. In a heartbeat, the man reached the toddler first, scooping her up just as the ball flew overhead, missing them by mere inches. Emily's breath caught. Relief washed over her like a wave. She wasn't sure if she wanted to laugh or cry. The man set the little girl down gently, his face flushed with adrenaline. She blinked at him, confused, before breaking into a delighted giggle. That was fun, she exclaimed, blissfully unaware of the danger she had just escaped. The crowd erupted into applause, relieved laughter filling the air. Emily felt her heart slow, the tension dissipating as relief washed over her. This was a moment of heroism, a reminder of the good that could emerge, even from chaos. But as the excitement faded, Emily caught the man's eye again. His expression was troubled, like thunderclouds lingering just out of sight. Are you all right? She asked, stepping closer, instinctively reaching out, as if she could touch the jagged edges of his anxiety. He nodded, but the shadows beneath his eyes told another story. Yeah, I don't know. It's just scary how quickly things can go wrong. I mean, look around. He gestured vaguely to the gathered crowd, the noise of parents teasing their children, the laughter echoing softly now. Emily paused, her chest tightening. You're right, but look how people stepped in. How you stepped in. Sometimes that's what matters. His gaze softened just a little, a hint of appreciation mixing with the weight of his concern. Yeah, but there's something else. I lost someone once due to carelessness. I just don't want to see that again. Her heart sank in understanding. They stood together, suspended in this moment, both feeling the weight of what it meant to care so deeply. Sometimes we have to face what we fear to find hope, Emily said carefully. Things can spiral, but they can also heal. Before he could respond, a loud bark startled them. Ginger had bounded forward, tail wagging, nudging the man's leg in an obvious plea for attention. The mood shifted. Laughter erupted again as people moved closer to see the enthusiastic pup. Emily chuckled, the tension easing slightly. Looks like she's determined to be the star of the show. Seems so, he said, his expression softening further as he knelt. His fingers brushed over Ginger's fur, and for the first time, Emily saw the beginnings of a smile. Just then, a commotion erupted from the far end of the park. A pair of children were bickering over a toy, voices raising once more. Emily felt the atmosphere shift again, uncertainty creeping back in. Not again. She muttered, glancing between the unfolding chaos and the man beside her. What next? What should have been a peaceful afternoon felt like a roller coaster, each twist bringing a new thrill and uncertainty. As laughter faded into mumbling and the air thickened with undeclared tensions, Emily wondered if they were about to face an even bigger challenge than before. Would they find a way to bridge these new divides, or would fear claim its hold on the day once more? Emily's eyes darted toward the source of the commotion. The two kids, a boy and a girl, were locked in a tug-of-war over a brightly colored toy truck. Their faces flushed with determination. Each yanked the toy harder, as if it were the key to their very happiness. Emily's heart sank again. It wouldn't take much for their disagreement to escalate into tears, and then anger. The man straightened, following her gaze. Should we? He started, his voice trailing off as he looked at the scene unfolding. We can't just stand here, Emily said, her instincts kicking in. Let's see if we can help. They moved toward the scuffle, each step heavy with the knowledge of how quickly emotions could spiral out of control. Emily wondered if they were walking into something bigger than they anticipated. Hey there, Emily called, her voice steady but warm. What's happening? Both children paused, turning to her. The girl, with tousled hair and determined eyes, shouted, He took it from me first. No, I didn't. The boy protested, his grip on the truck tightening. The frustration simmered quietly between them, and Emily could sense the storm beneath the surface. She crouched down to their level, trying to coax out the truth. Okay, I see two friends really wanting to play. But fighting like this isn't going to be fun for anyone. How about we find a way for both of you to play with the truck? The boy opened his mouth, ready to argue again, but Emily continued, If we use our words instead of our hands, we can figure this out together. The man beside her watched, an interested look on his face. For a moment, he seemed caught in the uncertainty of the situation, as if he was reliving a risk that sent echoes of his past rushing forward. I think I can help. He chimed in, straightening up. He bent down to the kids. How about you both take turns? 1 minute for you, and then 1 minute for you. The girl blinked, her grip loosening. Okay, she said hesitantly, glancing at the boy. How does that sound? Emily urged, letting an encouraging smile bloom. All right, he relented to, though grudgingly. With patience and teamwork, the three of them managed to pull the children away from their tension. The truck was set down, and soon both kids were laughing, taking turns and racing around with it in a playful reprieve. Emily felt herself relax, hopeful that little change would ripple out into something more. I didn't know if that would work, she whispered to the man, and he chuckled softly, visibly relieved. Sometimes a simple idea can mend a lot. It's just hard to see in the moments of chaos, right? As they spoke, the laughter and commotion around them began to stabilize, laughter replacing cries, smiles replacing scowls, a community rising from the embers of conflict. Emily couldn't help but feel a surge of joy, a sense of accomplishment tightening her chest. But as quickly as the situation had improved, she sensed a shadow again rising. It was undercutting the joy of the moment, the air buzzing with unsaid words and unshed tears. Sometimes I worry about what's next, the man admitted quietly, eyes downcast. What if these moments of peace are just fleeting? Emily thought for a moment, the warmth of the sun overhead softening the worries. We can choose to hold on to them. teach our kids hope and kindness." Before she could finish, a high-pitched scream cut through their little bubble of calm, sending a fresh wave of anxiety crashing over her. "What now?" she murmured, heart pounding in her chest. With each sound bouncing around the park, the strands of their little community felt tenuous again. Would they weather this next storm together? And would the day end on a note of healing or despair? Emily's heart raced as she turned toward the source of the scream. It came from the edge of the park, where a little girl, no more than 5, was standing with wide eyes, pointing toward a cluster of bushes. Her face was locked in fear, and Emily felt a knot form in her stomach. "What's going on?" Emily asked, gently guiding the children away from the truck. They followed her gaze, curiosity igniting their early attention. "My puppy, Ginger," the girl cried, her voice thick with panic. She ran away. Immediately, a wave of empathy washed over Emily. Losing a pet could feel like losing a part of oneself. The man beside her visibly tensed at the mention of the puppy, as if something inside him stirred. "Okay, let's see where she went," he suggested, his voice steady, but Emily noticed the way his eyes darkened with concern. "Can you show us where you last saw her?" Emily asked sweetly, kneeling down to reach the girl's level. The child nodded, her fear still palpable, but mixed with the hope of finding her lost friend. "Right over there," she exclaimed, pointing enthusiastically, tears sparkling in her eyes. Together, they followed her into the bushes. The leaves rustled as they pressed through, the underbrush smelling of damp earth and wildflowers. The boy and girl, who had just fought over the truck, now joined forces with determination, searching together with hands outstretched. "Ginger, come here, girl." The little girl called, her voice a mixture of urgency and love. As they combed through the thick foliage, Emily's thoughts raced. The brief moment of peace they had just experienced felt so fragile now. She looked at the man walking beside her. His face was etched with focus as he scanned the area. But there was something else, an understanding that pushed him to search with fierce purpose. What had happened in his past that made this moment feel so important to him? Suddenly, the boy shouted, "Look!" He had spotted a small brown fluff ball tangled in a clump of vines, whimpering softly. Ginger, rocks and twigs clung to her fur, and her little brown eyes looked up at them, filled with trust and a bit of fear. "Ginger!" the girl cried, rushing forward. "I found you." As she scooped up the puppy and held her close, the air around them burst with relief. The little girl giggled, her earlier fear melting away as she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "You're okay," she whispered to Ginger, who relievedly licked her cheek. Emily felt her own heart swell with joy, but the echo of the man's earlier words tugged at the back of her mind. Would these victories last? "There's something special about moments like this," he spoke softly, almost as if he could read her thoughts. "They remind us that there's always hope even lost." The children sat in a circle, each taking turns to pet Ginger, the bonds of their earlier conflict fading away into laughter and shared happiness. Emily recognized the beauty of community forming in real time, stitching together the torn pieces of their day. But as she watched the children gleefully play, an unexpected sound came from beyond the bush, a low growl mixed with a menacing bark. It echoed like a warning, pulling everyone's attention back to the wild. What was that? Emily's voice barely broke through the growing tension in the air as the man's face turned pale, a flicker of fear crossing his features. as they began to linger at the edge of the bush. Hearts racing and instincts kicking in, Emily couldn't shake the feeling. What was lurking just beyond their peaceful moment? What new challenge awaited them? The growl rumbled again, deep and unsettling. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. Emily's heart thudded in her chest as the children froze, their laughter snuffed out like a blown-out candle. The little girl clutched Ginger tighter, her wide eyes reflecting a mix of confusion and fear. "Stay close," Emily commanded, trying to keep her voice steady for their sake. The man beside her took a step forward, squinting into the tangled greenery, as if searching for the source of the sound. "Do you think it's a dog?" he whispered, almost to himself. "I don't know," Emily replied, her mind racing. Something about it feels off. She knew they couldn't linger in uncertainty. "Let's back up slowly," he suggested, his gaze still intent on the shadows moving just beyond the bushes. Emily nodded, hoping to steal a few more moments of safety. As they slowly retreated, Emily felt a tug at her heart, not just for her own safety, but for the innocent children. They deserved every ounce of joy that Ginger had brought into their lives, and she couldn't let fear snuff it out. The man seemed to sense her resolve and placed his hand on her arm, a gesture of solidarity. "Don't worry. I'll protect them," he said, his voice low yet firm. They moved quietly, retreating toward the park path, where sunlight filled the air with a warm glow. But just as they made it to the edge of the bushes, the growling erupted again, this time accompanied by rustling leaves. "Run," the man shouted as he pointed. Everyone took off, their feet pounding against the ground, hearts racing with adrenaline. Emily glanced back and saw a dark figure emerge, a large dog, its fur bristled and teeth bared. "Don't look back. Keep going," Emily yelled, urging the children forward. The fear of the unknown propelled them, each small pair of legs sprinting like the wind. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of the park's open field, panting and gasping for breath. The man turned around, fists clenched. "What the hell was that?" he said, eyeing the bushes warily. "Is everyone okay?" Emily asked, glancing at the children who were shaking but unharmed. They nodded, anxiously looking back to where they had just escaped. "We should get help," the man said, searching Emily's face for reassurance. "We can't let that dog stay out there to scare anyone else." Emily felt the need to move quickly, but also thought about the children, still shaken from their encounter. "I'll stay with them," she said. "You go to the park office and let them know." "No, if that thing comes back." He looked toward the path as if anticipating the dark figure hopping into view, his bravado cracking. "What if it does?" Emily countered. "Then we need to be prepared to face it." Something unspoken held them there, that fierce mix of fear and bravery intermingling in the air. "Okay." He finally relented, determination hardening his gaze. "We'll stick together." The group gathered closely, their breath slowly returning to a steadier rhythm, but that feeling of uncertainty hung thick. Maybe it was just protecting something. One of the kids suggested, their innocent perspective cutting through the tension. "Or maybe it's just as scared as we were," Emily murmured, her heart heavy with empathy. As they regrouped, a new determination sparked in her chest. They had found Ginger, faced fear, and together they could confront whatever lay ahead. But where could that dog be hiding now? What was it protecting, and how did they get to the bottom of it? The questions hung heavy in the air, swirling with the need for answers. Whatever was lurking out there, Emily knew one thing for sure: they would find a way to face it together. The crowd around them buzzed with whispers, eyes darting toward the bushes where danger lurked. Emily's heart thudded as she tightened her grip around Bella, the panic and uncertainty crawling under her skin, but something else flared within her resolve. "We can't let fear win," she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a beacon. "Let's remind everyone that we're stronger together." The man nodded, a flicker of admiration brightening his eyes. "You're right. We've faced chaos before. We just need to approach it as a team, with renewed purpose." They rallied. "Listen up, kids," Emily said, her tone encouraging yet strong. "We've got something to confront, but we have each other. Teamwork makes us unstoppable." Slowly, the children, emboldened by her words, gathered around her, faces determined. The man stepped forward as well, gaining strength from their resolve. "We can surround the bush, shout together, and let that dog know we mean no harm. We'll show it we're a community who cares." As they all nodded eagerly, Emily felt the warmth spread through her heart. "Okay, on the count of 3, she said, the countdown lingering in the air. 1, 2, 3. In unison, they shouted, "We're here to help you, dog. We're not threats." The words echoed off the trees, filling the space with urgency and reassurance. Slowly, the growling ceased. Emily's gut twisted as she peered into the darkness of the bushes where the noise had come from, hopeful and terrified. Then, like a curtain lifting, a large dog emerged, fur matted and eyes wild but flashing with curiosity rather than aggression. A collective breath hovered in the air. "Hey there, big guy," the man called softly, kneeling slightly as if to show his vulnerability. "What are you so afraid of?" With caution, they took a slow step closer as the dog hesitated, its body language shifting from defensive to curious. The air felt thick, charged with potential. What if it's lost, just like Ginger? Bella piped up, her small voice rising with compassion that mirrored Emily's heart. "Exactly," Emily encouraged, then turned back to the dog. "We can help. You don't have to be afraid." As if sensing their sincerity, the dog took a tentative step forward, its tail raising a notch. "That's it," Emily whispered, feeling the camaraderie blossom among them. "You've got a family here." The tension melted further when, suddenly, Ginger scampered out from Bella's arms toward the newcomer. Her tail wagging like a playful flag, she approached the larger dog with no fear. "He wanted to play," Bella exclaimed, her eyes twinkling with realization. Their combined joy bubbled over, and soon the larger dog began to relax, surrendering to the small puppy's light-hearted spirit. "See how simple it can be when we approach with kindness," the man said, relief washing over his features as he stood back up, his posture softer. Emily smiled, watching as the two dogs sniffed and circled each other. Their earlier fears transformed into games of freedom. The kids giggled, their laughter ringing like a song that swept through the crowd and punctured the remnants of worry. "We did it, team," Emily shouted, heart soaring. The energy shifted, that moment of unity igniting something magical. This is what community looks like. If we can overcome that, we can overcome anything. The man asserted, a newfound light in his eyes. Just then, a cheer erupted, and Emily's gaze met the faces of her neighbors, smiling and nodding in agreement. The walls of judgment, that once stood between them had crumbled, replaced, now, by an inviting spirit of togetherness. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow, Emily felt the weight of joy settle in her chest. This day changed everything, she thought, a fierce love for her community swelling inside her. "We're family now," she declared, the sentiment spilling over, wrapping around everyone like a protective blanket. "All of us, even if we stumble. Let's keep this going. Let's make more memories." With a rambunctious yip, Ginger bounded toward the group, as if to say, "Let's keep the fun rolling." Children raced after her, giggles echoing as joy zipped through the air. As Emily looked around, warmth filled her from head to toe. Yes, they had faced messy mistakes, chaos, and fear. But under it all, they had found the heart of their community, a heart stitched together with kindness and understanding. And that, she realized, was a bond nothing could break. "Together we stand," she said softly, reflecting on the journey they had taken. Her neighbors nodded, smiles now wide and genuine. In that moment, Emily knew this was just the beginning of something extraordinary, a transformation that would ripple through their lives. It was a lesson learned, one that reminded each of them to embrace mistakes, to foster connection, and to treasure the beautifully imperfect reality around them. As the sun set, framing their laughter with hues of orange and gold, Emily felt hope surge through her, an indomitable spirit of transformation. The ties of community thickening like a tapestry, all woven together with love. Now is the time for us to celebrate transformations. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe. Now this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait, not even one more second to share.